Hello out there. Thank you so much for tuning in today. My name is Zachary Morris, Senior Manager of Global Engagement here at Atlas Corps, and I am very fortunate today to be here with a couple of special guests. So I'd like to introduce um, Andy and Desi, who are Indonesian Atlas Corps scholars who graduated from our Virtual Leadership Institute, who will later on be speaking about their experiences. And then we also have Allison Vassi on the line from Cultural Affairs Officer at the U.S. Embassy Singapore, and she will give a couple of remarks on our partnership with the embassy to implement this initiative. Amazing. Well, we will bring back everyone later. Um, but now I'd love to give an overview of our initiative, the Singapore Emerging Leaders for Economic Growth Initiative. And again, so great to see everyone here today. Very warm welcome. So for those who may be unfamiliar with what we do at Atlas Corps engages talented global professionals committed to social impact in leadership development programs. Our classic program that we've been operating for 15 years is a 12 to 18-month professional fellowship serving with the U.S. host organization, either in person and now remotely. And it is our 15th anniversary this year, so we're very excited to celebrate that. However, last year, we also launched a new program called the Virtual Leadership Institute to continue and deepen our engagement with global changemakers, even while travel prevented us from crossing borders. Atlas Corps believes in the power of helping rising leaders throughout the world connect across borders, whether online or in person. At the heart of our organization's mission is the belief that empowered, trained, and networked individuals are the most effective means to address critical social issues on local and global levels. So, what is the Singapore Emerging Leaders Initiative for Economic Growth? Well, this initiative seeks to enhance participants' skills and capacity to lead ventures and initiatives that strengthen entrepreneurial and innovation ecosystems and generate inclusive economic opportunity and growth. The initiative builds economic security and prosperity in Singapore and the Association of Southeast Asian Nations and the broader Indo-Pacific region, while strengthening ties between the United States and Singapore. We are aiming to recruit emerging entrepreneurs, economic development professionals, and social change leaders from Singapore to participate in our Virtual Leadership Institute. They'll be joining an online community to empower these leaders, known as Atlas Corps Scholars. The three key elements are 5 learning modules, professional development electives, and a leadership project. And later on in the presentation, we'll go into more detail about what these different aspects of the Virtual Leadership Institute are. Now, the goal of the Leadership Institute is to prepare scholars for leadership in their communities and to create empowered, trained, and networked individuals as the most effective means to address critical social issues on local and global levels. Scholars in this program will gain benefits such as developing your leadership skills and extending your impact for the benefit of the people in Singapore and the Indo-Pacific region as entrepreneurs or in areas related to entrepreneurship, innovation, or inclusive economic opportunity and growth. You'll be able to connect with other international and U.S. business, government, and civil society leaders and organizations through our workshops to generate impact and promote increased mutual understanding and collaboration between U.S. and Singapore and among nations in the region. And you'd potentially have access to funding for the most promising leadership projects as determined by a selection panel. So that is an overview of our initiative and the Virtual Leadership Institute. Now we're going to go ahead and bring Allison back to the call to give some remarks from U.S. Embassy Singapore.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you, Zachary, for that introduction. It's a great pleasure to be here with you all at today's information session of the Singapore Emerging Leaders for Economic Growth Initiative organized by Atlas Corps. U.S. Embassy Singapore is proud to support this initiative that aims to enhance the skills and capacity of Singaporeans to lead ventures which strengthen entrepreneurial and innovation ecosystems and generate inclusive economic opportunity and growth. We're super excited that Atlas Corps is launching their Virtual Leadership Institute in Singapore for the first time. This online learning professional development program will help participants known as Atlas Corps Scholars, some of whom you're going to meet very soon, to develop their leadership skills and build their global networks. This session is timely because November is National Entrepreneurship Month in the United States, and we're celebrating Global Entrepreneurship Week this week through November 12th. This week, we recognize the American spirit of entrepreneurship abroad and amplify support for entrepreneurs who serve their communities. Our support for the Singapore Emerging Leaders for Economic Growth Initiative reflects our commitment to strengthen U.S.-Singapore ties and enable young leaders in Singapore to develop their capacities and form connections with U.S. entrepreneurs, businesses, and like-minded organizations. If you're passionate about generating positive impact in areas related to entrepreneurship, innovation, or inclusive economic growth, this initiative will provide valuable opportunities for you to become leaders and champions of sustainable economic growth in Singapore and across the region. We hope this information session will be useful and interesting for everyone who's thinking of applying. We look forward to seeing your applications and working with you throughout the program. Back over to you, Zach.
Thank you so much. Perfect. Well, this is a snapshot of the amazing community of Atlas Corps fellows and scholars you'll be joining through participation in the Singapore Emerging Leaders for Economic Growth Initiative. We have now over 1,100 social change leaders from 110 countries. All right. To go into more detail about the Virtual Leadership Institute, I wanted to tell you all about our modules. Our Institute curriculum is based on the modules of orientation, developing self, developing others, and leading movements in reflection. These modules enable you to explore a different aspect of your leadership development journey. Key elements of each module include a keynote speaker, an interactive workshop, self-led activities, peer coaching groups, and community building activities. Now, you'll have the opportunity to go through online activities associated with each module. While some activities are required, you'll also be able to customize your schedule and learning by which electives you select. These are examples of just some of the activities within 3 of our modules. You typically have 3 to 4 weeks to complete each module, and within that period, you'll be able to work through the activities on your own schedule. You'll also be able to engage with other scholars in online discussions about these activities. I think the most exciting part of the Institute is being able to reflect on global issues, on entrepreneurship, on diversity and inclusion, and what that means to you in relation to other scholars from around the world. For example, we have one particular activity on intersectionality. So analyzing the multiple identities of ourselves and how society views and perceives us is one activity that I really enjoyed reading responses about in our discussion forum. Now, what is our leadership project? Well, each scholar will design a leadership project, which could be an activity, training session, or venture. And a couple of examples I'll go through are here. So it could be a workshop that provides entrepreneurship tools for women or youth, a series of webinars on how to find support in the entrepreneurial ecosystem, STEM education workshops, a hackathon that connects innovators from Singapore, Southeast Asia, and the US around a shared purpose, or an online database or app that helps organize and unite the entrepreneurial ecosystem. or an initiative that brings Singaporean and US entities together in support of the entrepreneurial ecosystem in Singapore. Those are just some examples of the type of leadership project that you could develop by joining the Virtual Leadership Institute. Now, peer coaches in the US and global peers in group sessions accompany you along this journey. And we have these small group sessions that are held throughout the Institute as you develop your leadership project. Leadership projects will be implemented in Singapore upon completion of the Institute, and the goal is for you to reach at least 20 additional Singaporeans or residents through your leadership project in Singapore and the wider region. Okay, so here are some details about how to apply. And later on, we'll go into some application tips. First, you can learn more about how to apply on our website at sg.atlascore.org. And it's very easy to take a step to prepare for your professional advancement by applying. Our priority deadline is November 30th to be considered for a cohort beginning in early 2022, most likely in February, and running through August or September. Now, what are the requirements? To be eligible for this initiative, you must be a citizen and resident of Singapore, age 22 to 35, have a minimum of a bachelor's degree, and have 2 or more years of full-time professional experience working to address critical social issues, English proficiency and technological capacity to participate in video calls. And finally, this program is about 3 to 5 hours a week on average of either scheduled or self-led online activities. We aim to select candidates who want to continue a career in Singapore or for the benefit of people in Singapore as leaders in areas related to entrepreneurship, innovation, inclusive economic opportunity, growth, or economic security and prosperity. And top candidates will then be invited to join the Virtual Leadership Institute and will be enrolled in our online program to get started. Now, that is enough for me. I'm very excited to bring Andy and Desi back on to talk about their experiences with the Virtual Leadership Institute. So again, Desi and Andy, welcome again, and thank you so much for joining us today to talk about the Virtual Leadership Institute. I know it's a bit late over there in Indonesia and as well in Singapore.
Thank you for having me, Zach.
Of course. So I wanted to get started with my first question. It'd be great, Desi, if you could tell me about your background, such as what you currently do and what attracted you to that field.
Okay. I'm currently a master's student studying public policy and conducting my research on education policy response in COVID-19. I chose this topic because this is a timely needed and tailored to the current context of education agenda, not only in Indonesia, but globally. So yeah, that's a brief about me.
Amazing, thank you. And Andy, how about you?
I'm a professional. I've been working for community, mental health, and youth leadership for the past 4 years. And currently, I'm the founder and the CEO of Social Connect, one of Indonesia's largest community-based organization focused on mental health. Why mental health? Because I'm a mental health survivor. I was experienced how hard back then finding a support in terms of mental health here in Indonesia. And I think a lot of young people in Indonesia are suffering right now due to COVID-19 pandemic as well, when many youth is in isolation. And I think it's very important to bringing this topic up to the public. Yeah.
Perfect. Thank you for that overview. Yeah, you're both working on issues related to COVID-19 or issues that have listed for a while but have been impacted by COVID-19. Definitely something that, yeah, that has had such a large impact on society. But the positive thing is that we were able to launch this initiative, which we wouldn't have if the pandemic hadn't happened. Although sad that it has impacted us in these ways. Now, why did you apply for the Virtual Leadership Institute? Yeah, Desi, feel free to respond.
Fun fact about me is I actually, before I study public policy, I actually a teacher to be graduate. So it's very it's normal to say I don't have understand base a very wide understanding on the landscape of policy in education, let alone in education. So in addition to preparing myself by studying formally in my institution right now, I came to an understanding that I need to learn more practically with the people who have the hands-on experience on the public sector, the leadership, and the issue itself. Thankfully, I found that the LS Core is accepting the scholar for the VLE Indonesia initiative. So instantly, I prepare my application and send it, and thankfully, I got selected.
Great, thank you. And Andy, how about you?
I think I have a different story on how I applying for this program because maybe many young entrepreneurs, especially social entrepreneurs like me, we find a little support here in terms of how we develop our leadership and how we develop the policy to the public in terms of what our program gonna be. So for me, I was suffer a lot in terms of how to develop my program and how to develop my leadership skills because this kind of program is very rare in Indonesia to have. You know, even I'm graduate of international relation. We don't talk about leadership. We don't talk about policy. We often talk about politics. We often talk about diplomacy. And when I started Social Connect, it's really coming to heart that I not understand a lot about leadership, but I working with thousands of volunteers every year. It's very sad that I don't know how to manage the system, how to create all of those stuff, how to motivate them and all of those stuff. But after I found out this program, I think this is really implementable, and I think the program is really suited what I wanted and what I needed at the moment as a social entrepreneur here in Indonesia.
Great. Well, thank you both so much for that answer. My next question is, what were some highlights of your participation in the Virtual Leadership Institute?
Okay, just like the previous, I will answer first.
Mhm.
I think it's fair. The learning module was very well designed, I would say, and in some point, it's highly curated on the landscape of the socio-economic context in Indonesia. So I am optimistic that the same goes to the program in Singapore. The module will be well designed to what are the specific texts that apply to the socio-economic pictures in Singapore. Like we have several modules talking about Pancasila and leadership, which is very rare opportunity for me to reflect on the nationalism value, but also how it's related to the leadership context. So it's very unique, it's very well designed, and very well curated. Other than that, I would say the learning contents is also very strategic. So it's not all the theoretical basis, but it also very strategic. It helps us to use the assessment, which also applicable, meaning people across sector. Like I'm on education, Mas Andi's on mental health. We both can use the tools provided by on the modules within our specific context of issue. So yeah, and great job to the Atlas Core team also for designing the module.
Thank you. And how about you, Andy?
I copied what Daisy said in terms of modules and all of those stuff. But one thing that I really it's really teach me it's really teach to build the muscle of social entrepreneurs that we have a virtual coffee chat which we are supposed to contact our scholars from our cohort or different cohort. For me, I'm a social entrepreneur, but I'm a social introvert person. I'm not really like, hi, like, can we networking? I'm not really good at it. At first, I just like, oh my god, how I do it? How do I do it online? It's online. It's somehow awkward, and then somehow like someone we just like really hard to do that. But this program is really helping me for the past 3 months. It's really teaching me how to connect with people step by steps, and how to start a real good conversation, and how to follow up those conversation after the program. It's really meaningful until today.
Yes, well, taking a big step to present to our audience here today. So congrats on that. What country was the virtual coffee chat? What country were they from?
I just context all Indonesian because I'm still afraid of time difference, because I'm working as well, and daily basis, and also working in weekends. So I think Indonesian is suited me the best for the time arrangement.
Well, always good to connect with other Indonesians who are also working in the same social impact sphere. Great. And then Andy, tell us about maybe a VLI activity that you really enjoyed participating in.
A lot of things are very interesting in terms of community program. For example, the leadership labs, and also you guys have 1 month each group call session with expert you guys bringing to the table, that actually helping us reflect upon our modules. And also my favorite thing is we have like a peer coaching session, which our scholars, and we have our mentors in it. In that kind of area, we really share what is going on, not only with us but in Indonesia as a whole. Because for me, I have a chance and a privilege to meet people from any sectors or many backgrounds, and they are working with the governments, who are working with the private agencies, they are working with the companies. For me, I'm working for NGOs and social entrepreneurship. And when we met there, we really blossom the conversation about our country, what's going on, what kind of policy that really interested to doing, what kind of challenging that each one of us having. And then we are thinking and reflecting on our role as a youth, as a leaders, for at current moment, what can we do in our organization to help Indonesia or to contribute more into our country. That's a very meaningful session.
Great, and Desi.
I would say one of my favorite will be the coffee chat because I got to learn and explore what we cannot discuss during the limited time weekly monthly session. Because usually on Zoom meetings we have a very specific topic to discuss, but curiosity expands beyond the time zone. So we have the coffee chat to discuss about things. And I would say, like Mas Andy mentioned, the people I meet through this virtual program is the person I really look up to learn from. Because policy has wide intersectionalities. Even though I study about education, but there's also an issue that is intersection between the education, the economic, the policy itself. Like, and I got to learn that wide perspective through one virtual training program, which is very impressive. And I met people who are very I would say very helping with my current thesis work. They help me to find the data I need to look for. I just would say the networking, the people are very a person you can look up to. So do not hesitate to apply for the program, because yeah, you can learn more from the people you meet.
Perfect. Well, I think you hit upon an important benefit of being part of the Virtual Leadership Institute, and that's the ability to network with other leaders, and to identify, with how do we work together to create social impact in the world. And I think it's very, very unique and nice to be in that type of community where everyone is thinking in that way. So thank you for highlighting that in your answers. I know that, Andy, you mentioned leadership, and sort of, I think you both did, but yeah, so feel free, either of you or both of you, to answer. But how do you reflect on the role of yourself as a leader, in reference to your society, your community, and sort of what did you learn about leadership by participating in the Virtual Leadership Institute?
Okay. For me, there is a lot of learning that I got, but one things that are very important, leadership is not about position, but leadership is all about serving people. And before this, I wasn't really understand how to manage a team, how to run a large community-based organization. We have a lot of volunteers coming in and coming out. We're trying to make them happy, as everybody do. People thinking leadership is just one way to make people happy, to make everybody happy, but there is a wrong expectation. But this expectation is going on in a lot communities and local NGOs in Indonesia. We have been seeing that a lot. Many leaders feel burned out because cannot serve their team, they cannot make their team smiles, they cannot helping their teams. But the ultimate goals of the leaders is not only about making people happy, but it's all about taking the organization one step forward, together with taking that individuals and develop the skills of the individuals to be a better person before they are entering the organization, after they are graduating from the organization. So I'm able to see this line between people coming and people go, between coming and like graduating, is because of this Virtual Leadership Institute. So I'm able to see that my role is no longer being the CEO, like, oh, this is your to do for every day, but my role is, it's fully thinking about how I redesign your leadership journey, or how I redesign your product, and how I redesign the organizations, that making people working more fearlessly, making people working innovatively, how to make those things happen and make ideas floating in the organization is very important. And one of the biggest key takeaways is that I organize a sessions as well for my own team. We have our leadership teams in Social Connect. So we organize the session. So I'm trying to bringing back some important things that I learned from Virtual Leadership Institute, because I think it's very important to pass this message to other leaders, because they are the one who creating leaders. For me, someone who's sitting on the top of the games, is really hard to reaching to the bottom of the games. It's just like iceberg. I'm the type of the iceberg. It's really hard to reaching to the levels, to the staff level. For me, it's very important to pass on the ideas, and also the learning that I got from the Virtual Leadership Institute. And thank you so much. It's really implementable in my organization so far.
Yeah, well, great reflection on how to manage volunteers, and I'm sure you're doing an awesome job at it before. But glad you're able to learn new insights. And yeah, I mean, I would say that's the same, managing volunteers, managing a community. It's striking a balance, between many different factors, between making them happy, but also, what you highlighted around, developing their skills, and so, ensuring they're effective in other ways. Well, that's what we do with the fellows, doing silly activities like pumpkin carving, which we did this Halloween, to, professional development, or how can we help you succeed. Perfect. Desi, how about you? How do you reflect on this role of leadership?
I would say I understand that leadership is not only the talk, like motivational, inspirational, but it's also walk the talk. what are the strategic tools for you to better understand the issues going on within your team, and for each specific issue there is actually specific tools, specific strategy for that. I used to I get to learn that there are so many strategic tools that I actually can use, and the Atlas Core curated all the strategic tools, which is very helpful for me. Other than that, it's very a unique opportunity where I get to reflect not only on the issues I care about, but also about the intersectionalities of it, and that helps me to better shape an understanding about the core of the leadership itself is not only where I stand in right now, but also what are the surrounding environments that I currently standing on within that issue, and that itself speaks volume to the diverse people on the program itself that I can learn more, I can learn from. And I would say I have so many takeaways from the program. I lost the count. The people, the experience, the tools, everything is just very impressive for me, and it's beyond my expectation actually before I participate on the program. So yeah, thank you for that.
Great. Well, is there anything else either of you like to add that we haven't brought up today about the initiative?
I think from me, the last drop is that this program is really worthy. Even, I have a very little expectation on it, to be honest with you, because I joined a lot of virtual programs since pandemic in Indonesia. And I think it's just, okay, it's just like another program. You sitting there and there is seminars, there is a people talk about things, and then, okay, then you get a certificate. Voila, you add to your CV. But for what Atlas Core do is really different. The thing is really different. The program is really different, even though it's a virtual program. But we push to learn more in terms of ourselves and reflect more in terms of what we're doing currently. So I think for people out there who are thinking for applying for this program and thinking, is that worthy or not? I guarantee you, this is really worthy. I've been there for 3 months, even though I miss several courses as well, because a lot of jobs, a lot of deadlines. But I managed to survive through the time. But I really thank you. It's really also teaching me a time management, how to manage my time between working and also continuous learning. Because even in my age, I'm a bit older, we need to still learning to move our organization forward. So I think it's very worth it in terms of that. Thank you.
Amazing. Desi, any final words you'd like to add?
I think just be yourself. I actually did not really expecting to pass the selection, because I know that Atlas Core has a very competitive selection process, and I just beat the bare minimum eligibility, like 2 years of experience. And I got shocked because the people who got selected on the program is a very professional people with experience 5 to 10 years on the professional area. So I'm so surprised that I got selected and thankful for that. For anybody who still wondering either to apply or not, either you are eligible for that or not, just apply and let the magic do the rest of the work.
Perfect. Well, that is a great segue into our last part of this. So I will be giving some application tips, and then we'll do a question and answer. And you feel free to ask a logistical question about the Institute that I can answer, or Desi and Andy will bring you back in if an audience has an additional follow-up question for you. So let me just share my screen again. And we'll go into application tips. Alrighty. So here are a couple of application tips that you should keep in mind when filling out your application. The first is be specific and provide examples. When we ask you to explain why you're interested in the program, just don't say you want to gain skills. Really think about the specifics. What skills do you want to develop? How do you see yourself developing leadership or changing your role around leadership? When talking about your experience addressing critical social issues, give examples of your responsibilities, accomplishments, specific policies you worked on or done advocacy in. What in the application process, we look at the quality of your responses and the passion you show through that, especially for the Virtual Leadership Institute. So even if you do have fewer years of experience, it really matters what you write. Again, when you're highlighting your experience addressing social issues, there are numerous different careers that could make you a good fit for this program. You could, have experience in the government sector, advocacy group, NGOs, or even private companies. Whatever your exact career or field is, make sure your connection is to the aims of the Singapore Emerging Leaders for Economic Growth Initiative. And it's clear in your bio and in your essays. Ask yourself, how do I demonstrate my experience or interest as a candidate who can promote inclusive economic growth, entrepreneurship, economic prosperity, or anything related to that in Singapore and the greater region. Another important aspect of your application is to check over your spelling and grammar. The program is conducted only in English, and while we don't require an English test like the TOEFL or IELTS, your application needs to demonstrate that you have fluency in English to be able to speak with others participating in the Institute and to be able to complete written assignments and understand those assignments through reading comprehension. So your application should be well written and professional. Again, we also understand that that everyone has different degrees of writing styles. But again, just that base level of fluency in written and writing. And have a friend proofread it if you can. I also suggest that you use the tool called Grammarly. I use it as a native English speaker whenever I am working on an assignment. And then another tip we have here is you will be asked to record your video. So make sure that you are you do your video professionally. And there should be tips for recording a good video right in the application guidelines. You should also write a strong 1-paragraph bio. This is the first essay question of the application. So when our selection board is reading your application, this is their first impression of you. Again, we provide instructions for what to include in your bio when you're looking at the application. So make sure you follow those instructions. So those are tips to follow when reflecting on how to submit your application to the Singapore Emerging Leaders for Economic Growth Initiative. So now I wanted to throw things out to the audience to see if anyone had any questions they wanted to ask, anything that we haven't answered so far. If not, there are a couple questions and details I can go over. And if anyone wants to write anything in the chat, then feel free to go ahead and we'll answer your question. So what's the time commitment of the Virtual Leadership Institute? You should expect to spend approximately 3 to 5 hours per week on online activities, and that also includes participating in our scheduled workshops on average on a weekly basis. And again, the activities are a mix of live and asynchronous offline sessions. When will the live sessions take place? And what if you have conflicts during the live sessions? Our goal is that scheduled video calls are held between really the live workshops are in the morning, our time, in Eastern time, around 9 or 10 a.m. And then it would be in the evening on your end, most likely around this time or perhaps a little bit later. And then for the peer coaching groups, we ask you to be as flexible as possible, since we will have participants across numerous time zones participating in the peer coaching groups and even the larger workshops. And we will finalize exact call time closer to the start of the Institute. Our call times are subject to change, and we analyze participants' time zones and attendance. And again, while scholars are really encouraged to attend live sessions to make new connections with the Atlas Core community, you'll also have access to recordings of the sessions if you're unable to attend live. Now, we have 2 programs, and our other program is the Atlas Core Fellowship. So what is the Atlas Core Fellowship? Well, just to give you a brief overview, it's a 12 to 18 month overview of the 12-month fellowship volunteer service in the United States. And you serve with the host organization while also developing your professional development skills and contributing your international perspective. So our application is separate for the Virtual Leadership Institute. It's a little bit shorter than the fellowship application and more targeted towards asking about your leadership project. So if you are interested in the fellowship, you would fill out a different application. And the difference between the applications is that the longer application includes more detailed information about your employment history, professional skills, and 2 references. And again, that is for the fellowship. The Virtual Leadership Institute application is shorter. And what more about this process is you would get invited to a Skype interview if you are selected as a finalist for the fellowship. And finally, you'd be designated as a semifinalist for the fellowship, which means that you're eligible to be considered for placement with a host organization. And hosts select semifinalists who are the best fit for their available positions. And please note that the fellowship includes slightly different eligibility requirements, such as the commitment to live on a basic stipend and returning home after the fellowship. Virtual Leadership Institute scholars do receive priority consideration for the fellowship if you're also interested in the fellowship as well as the Institute. I do see a question from Belda on YouTube. Yes, so it was around asking if you're a non-US Russia citizen. If you should not be using this application form if you're a non-US Russia citizen. So feel free to email me at apply@atlascore.org with that question. You should be on the right application, but let me double check. It does depend on the country you select, what messages pop up. So yeah, just want to make sure you're on the right application and feel free to touch base with me at apply@atlascore.org for more information. Awesome. Perfect. So yeah, that is a good transition point to if you have other questions, email me at apply@atlascore.org, whether that be technical questions about the application itself or anything else that you have. Perfect. Well, again, thank you so much, everyone, for participating today in the in this information session about the Singapore Emerging Leaders for Economic Growth initiative. It's been really great to have you present today, listening to our great speakers. I wanted to thank Desi and Andy and Allison again for taking the time out of their day, out of their evening, to speak to you all about this exciting opportunity. So again, feel free to email us if you have any questions, and you're always welcome to go back at any point in this video on YouTube or on Facebook if you missed part of this session. So again, thank you so much for your time today, and we really hope that you apply now.